Clark. I've worked at the University of Oklahoma for 8 years. I started right after I had my oldest son at the end of my second year of law school, because I'm crazy, as a graduate student, graduate assistant in the provost's office. And my boss, who was an associate provost at the time, had all these great ideas about integrity, academic integrity. What could we be doing better? What kind of system could we have? Because right now it was a long system. It was split up. It was not well favored by students or faculty, and the sanctions were really outdated. But that takes commitment and manpower. And after I passed the bar exam, I convinced him that I like what I'm doing. Give me a shot. And so for a year, I think it was a weird title of like research associate or something, for 30 hours a week. And at the end of that year, I wrote a memo to the provost, who was then Dr. Nancy Mergler, one of my mentors, and compared the University of Oklahoma to other Big 12 offices, indicating that most of them had at least one position who did nothing but academic integrity full-time. So the moral of the story: if you would like a job at the University of Oklahoma, find how we are lacking to Oklahoma State. So the presentation that I'm going to show you today is over a year old now. I am from Wichita, Kansas originally, graduated from Mays High School, went to Wichita State, go Shocks, for undergrad. And I'm friends with one of my physics teachers from high school, and he would message me saying, "I caught another one cheating, Breea. What do I do? What do you do at the university level so I can tell them and kind of scare them straight?" And because of that, this presentation was created. I have been to several high schools in Kansas and Oklahoma and gone through this presentation, and my goal is very much right here: preparing students to meet the higher standards of academic integrity at the university level. Because who do you think cheats most, at least at the University of Oklahoma? Freshmen, sophomore, junior, or seniors? It's freshmen. And I don't know if it's a sense of entitlement. I don't know if it's, I didn't bother to read the code because I did well in high school, so why would I bother to look at that? That they don't realize the consequences are so much more severe when you get to the college level. And at the end of it, I will kind of do a quick rundown of what we're looking at in terms of OU, Oklahoma State. But now I want to just dive right in, and let's see if I can make this. There we go. Today's plan of attack. We're going to go. Can everyone see this, by the way? Do I need to turn more lights off? It's good? Okay. We're going to look at kind of an overview of academic integrity today. We will compare high school versus college. We're going to try to identify that disconnect, propose and find a solution, but then what's in it for you? So, does this look familiar to anyone? It was back in 2002, cheating in the heartland. I added this because, like I said, it started in Kansas, and they remembered this. This was a big cheating scandal at a high school in Kansas, and it was, where was the town? Piper, Kansas. You know, kind of what you picture when you think of Kansas, I'm sure. You know, wheat fields and dirt roads and stuff. And it involved a research paper in science. She clearly explained plagiarism, told them not to do it, and when they did anyways, she failed them all for the course. Parents, cries of outrage, went to the Board of Education and demanded that they get graded for it. And so yes, it was 28 out of 118 Piper High School sophomores plagiarized blatantly. Parents complained to the school board. The teacher was ordered to raise the grades, so she resigned. I mean, that's a whole different example of integrity and presentation right there, but it happens. So I think we need to be talking to our kids more about academic integrity, and since this is an ethics related, this is an easy way to start the conversation about integrity and ethics. So honor codes. That is something very common that you'll see at the college level. You've got William and Mary, whose code was written in 1736. Not everyone is lucky enough to have that. But if you look at Accreditation Standards, it looks like from number 1, the institution provides effective oversight and support services to ensure the integrity of research and scholarly practice conducted by its faculty, staff, and students. For me, that says you have to have a system. Next, students are offered guidance in the ethical use of information resources. Educate about plagiarism. Number 3, the institution has and enforces policies on academic honesty and integrity. Enforce the system. So while some institutions, again, have had something in place since 1736, since they're requiring it for accreditation, you're going to see more and more colleges reaching out and setting up systems. OU's been approached several times. Smaller schools that are now having to look at how it's done. So we've also got student organizations. A lot of them could be like National Honor Society, you know, the good kids, which is not necessarily true, but they focus on academic integrity. Many schools have an honor council. That's what ours started here at the University of Oklahoma, but for some reason it kept getting confused with the Honors College. So we call ours the Integrity Council, or IC. It's all different majors and backgrounds. We include international students, student athletes. We also have had students go through our program after making a mistake and apply and join the Integrity Council, which I think speaks volumes about the success of our system, but it's also so helpful when we do get the stereotype of being the good kids, the snitches, the ones who never do anything wrong. So you're seeing a lot of opportunities for them to be involved. Their responsibilities differ. It could be everything from just advising on what policies should look like from the student perspective, whereas we actually go towards the student-run system. So at OU, students are reported to me, I process them, and I'll get more to that in a moment when we talk about sanctions if they admit, but they can request an investigation and say, I didn't do it, and we give our students the authority to do the investigations. And they're trained and supervised by Will. That's where our responsibilities differ. But that's a lot of responsibility to give to your students. But it's very much students looking out for students. We actually allow them to dismiss cases if they think it doesn't meet the burden of proof for a violation of our academic integrity code. In our old system, our hearing panels were 5 people, 3 professors, 2 students. We switched that. Now our students chair our hearings. They do have a script that we ask them to follow, but they do a great job. I had a hearing on just this past Monday where we allow representation, but the students have to, or no, we allow counsel. The students have to represent themselves, and this attorney was kind of running away with that, and she shut him down. I was very impressed. So we give our students that kind of responsibility. They help me teach our remedial course, and they do provide policy recommendations, which is so helpful. If you don't give your students ownership of your academic integrity code, it's just one more thing that we're shaking our fingers about. They have to be invested in it. They have to see students who care about it as well. So it's not just one more rule that we're forcing upon them. It's something that as a community that they care about. Specialized offices, that's a big trend that I'm seeing lately. Hello, Associate Director of Academic Integrity Programs. That didn't exist until I helped to create it in 2009. So some places put it under, we put it under the provost, treat it as an academic issue. Some universities will put it under student conduct, treat it as a conduct issue. I see both. There's not one predominant, but more people like me whose sole job, and I love to say, protect the value of the OU degree. As I'm running for office, my whole career is centered on integrity. It's pretty awesome. Those are kind of what it looks like on campuses right now. So another big thing you'll see with academic integrity at the university level, scandal. And this is what you're going to hear most about. You're not going to hear about creative student-run systems or offices who they've placed such a priority on the degree at the university level. They create them, but this is what you hear about. And I've tried to, I'm not picking on any one school, all right? But look at the variety here. You've got Kansas State in the Big 12. You've got Minnesota, North Carolina. How they still have an athletic department is beyond me. It's just something new every time. I mean, no, I'm not hating, but come on. Texas, gotta throw that in. Air Force, that's slightly horrifying. And Harvard and Notre Dame. When schools like Harvard have cheating scandals, it's pretty much Christmas in my office because it shows that it happens anywhere. No one is immune to this. Did you know that Harvard did not have an academic integrity code before their scandal? You have to be talking about this. You can't assume that we all have integrity and all know the rules. You've got to have codes in place. You've got to have conversations. And Harvard was the perfect example of that. So, is cheating different in college? No, it's not. But I do want to cover it anyways. It gets a little more creative, probably. But then I hear about stealing buses and flipping classrooms, so I don't know. So we do have our cheat sheets and unauthorized materials. I've got, old school stuff with writing on the hands. We've also had our first case with smartwatches. And this wasn't at OU, but I've heard stories about students with plan their cheating with Skittles, where they would, if the red one was up forward, that meant B. And if the yellow one was up, that meant something else. So as you can see, creativity can sometimes hurt integrity because they get pretty darn creative. I have seen, this was one of my favorites. Well, Mrs. Clark, I didn't mean to have my study guide at my feet. You know, it's an auditorium style seating, so the room's kind of slanted, and I think it just slid out of my bag. Gravity is the reason for that one. Pre-filled out blue books. You know, where the professors are, and I'm sure you've done this, I'm going to ask 3 of these 5 questions so you help them be prepared. And students try to take the initiative and pre-fill it out. And there are many ways to combat that. Right when you get there, have them put a big X on page 3 or something like that. But this young lady, and I was quite surprised when I met her because she seemed like rather mousy, you know, very quiet. She had put a piece of paper on top of the blue book and then pressed really hard. And so there was no ink on the pages. But as the professor was flipping through it, she hit the light just correctly and could see it was completely filled out. All she had to do was lean quickly or over a little bit and then go over it with pen because she had, it was impressive. I've got stories all day long. And then another one, people will sneak in before the exam, write notes on the desk, erase it after they use it, and then leave. So they are very creative. And again, technology, I mean, if they weren't creative enough, makes it easier. We have people take pictures of exams so they have the questions and tell the sections right after them. So it's really increasing the professor's workload because you can't offer the same exam for 2 sections back to back. You just can't. It's depressing. I don't know how I haven't lost faith in the future of this great country. But I haven't. I'm fighting the good fight. Texting answers, one of my favorites. And he was caught by the professor, but he was reported by every student around him because I don't know if he thought he was invisible or what. But he was texting, and then he'd look over, and in the entryway of the auditorium-style room, there were 3 young ladies who were hand signaling. So he was texting them, texting him what number he was on, and they would hand signal the answer, and he'd write it down. And of course, everyone around him saw this. My favorite of one of the reporting emails was, "Hey, that was really distracting. Do you think I can take the test again?" Doesn't hurt to ask. And then using the internet to look up answers. I once had a plagiarism case on an in-class writing exam. Not a paper you take home and then hand in later. So what he had done, it was some English literature class, and he was supposed to write about a character. And she read it and was like, what is this person talking about? And so of course, good old Google typed in a line. And it turns out the character of the book had the same name as like a state senator from Minnesota in the late 1800s. And so he was just writing around, and like I said, I could go on and on. But this is old school cheating that just gets more creative with the addition of technology, and I'm sure you're seeing it in your classrooms. Then we've got collaboration. This is probably the #2 most reported kind of cheating at OU. Now, I think college is going to be more of a collaborative nature than high school is because we're training them to work with other people in whatever profession they're going into. But our baseline rule at OU is that unless they are specifically told, yes, this is a group assignment, they have to assume that it's independent because how many names are on your degree? But they blur that line. You know, they really do. And so that's one thing that professors can do is to really be clear on that. I often hear, well, this is how they do it in the real world. Yeah. Really, tell me more about the real world, college student. And I get what they're saying, that when you get out, especially code is very collaborative in nature when you're in your profession. I understand that. So are things I hear with accounting too, and business and that type of thing. But I don't think they understand that if you can't do it by yourself here, which is what you're here to learn, you're going to be depending on everyone and what I call the academic leech for the rest of their adult career. And they don't understand that quick designation of you have to be able to do it to yourself before you can collaborate. So that's a problem. Another one that we have, online courses. I hate online courses with a fiery passion. I wish we didn't have to offer them, but we do, and that's just the nature of education right now. So we'll see a big blurring of possible equals permissible. And so just because you can have a book in front of you, just because you can look up in the answers, just because your friend has their laptop next to you and you can do it together, doesn't mean that you should or it's allowed. And so the young people get very confused about that designation. And no one's watching online, so that accountability is gone. Personal relationships are so crucial in any aspect of life, but especially with education and ethics. And it's so easier to discount it when nobody is watching you. And speaking of personal relationships, collaboration happens a lot with groups that know each other. They want to help their friends. Human nature. I mean, loyalty is so strong. But I've seen with groups who know each other, tends to be student athletes, fraternities and sororities, my personal favorite. They were in youth group together. Church groups. Yep. So collaboration is a big one. This one I hate more than online courses. Paying to cheat. That is something that I graduated from undergrad in 2005. I didn't know about it then. Law school in 2008 was starting to hear about it. But I challenge you, go to your Google and just type in pay someone to, and look what comes up. If that is not horrifying to you, it should be. Because you can have students who've never done an assignment a day in their life. Or with online courses, it's not even them taking it, but getting the credit for it and representing to the world that they do have that experience in education. And it's anything. Like here, the variety: write a paper, to do your homework, to take my test, to do my essay. I had to expel a young man earlier this year. I do expel people. I'm not very liked with the students at the University of Oklahoma. But luckily, I only have to do it 4 to 5 times a year. And it's for big things. And the last time I had to expel someone was with online cheating, because we have to have a strong stance on that. I am fully prepared to shut it down and advertise that I expel people for this. And what he had done, have you heard of CourseHero.com? It's very depressing. So the professor, we use Turnitin.com at OU, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But she had got his Turnitin.com report, and it didn't come up as a hit, but it sounded funny. Listen to your spidey sense, okay? I'm sure you know how strong it is, especially with the student's voice and writing. So she Googled it, and it took her to CourseHero.com. So she was able to find the user ID of that assignment, which we then Googled the user ID and found 12 different assignments over 3 different classes at the University of Oklahoma. One was, I think, like his understanding music or something, his fine art type thing. One was a 2000 level math course, and one was the science course. And so I called him in, and I mean, I had confirmed it with all the professors. They're like, yeah, that's my assignment. I matched it to his, I mean, it was, I don't know, he couldn't have come in and denied it. Let's just put it that way. And I asked him, why did you do this? Why are you even here if you're not interested in actually learning, because you're paying for it? And he said to me, it was too hard. So if cheating in a 2000 level class on the homework, what do you think the exam's going to be like? And with the 2000 level, what about the 4000 level? So we were setting him up for failure, and they just don't see it that way. And let's say they manage to get all the way through whatever school they go to, paying for it and doing this type of thing, they're going to get fired from their first job because they're completely incompetent. But the line of achieving versus learning is so blurred right now in education, at least in higher education. They're going to do what they need to get the grades and not really care about getting the education they need to be the kind of professional that they're training to be. So I don't have a lot of positive at this point in the presentation, but stay with me. All right, it gets better. So paper mills. Paper mills are very, very depressing as well. There's actually 17 states that have legislation on the books that make paper mills illegal. If whether their DAs are actually prosecuting that, I don't know. Then there's a jurisdiction matter. You're in Oklahoma, let's say, the paper mill's based in Delaware, but the person who wrote the paper's in India. Yeah. So paper mills are definitely difficult. With that, I encourage you to have a variety of writing assignments, not just papers. Have in-class journals. Have short essays every Friday or whatever it is that you do, and your papers, because you will see the voice. I've gotten international students. That one's easier to find because in their regular writing, they don't have the right tense of verb usage and spelling even. Then they sound like a postdoctoral student about to publish. So make sure you're doing the variety thing. Solutions manuals and selling papers to cheat sites. I had a young lady reported to my office because one of her papers came up as a hit on turnitin.com. And she said, well, that's my paper. I said, it's on 123helpme.com. What do you mean that's your paper? Oh, it's one of my high school papers. I got such a good grade on it. I need money. I sold all of my high school papers to cheat sites. I couldn't really figure out how we went around establishing that it was her paper, but we got her on reusing previous assignments, which you can't do. But that was a first, and I haven't seen that since. Oh, and sidebar, don't tell your students that they can turn in their high school work in college. Because and they're giggling, but I had a student in a gateway class tell me the other day, well, my English teacher said that my work is quality and I should do that in college. No. In theory, we're making them better writers when they get here. Saying. So we've seen that. Solutions manuals are horrifying. I know that it's happening at the high school level. If you haven't Googled yourself on Study Blue, or if your solution manual is available, you need to do it because they are. I guarantee you they are. They're looking. They're trying to find the answers ahead of time, and they're finding it. And what's crazy is it's evolved so quickly, so fast, that we don't even know these things exist. We don't even know where to look. So we have discovered this quickly. So make sure you're aware of that. We had a solutions manual case recently where the professor said, Breea, I got an email from the textbook company. My GA requested the solutions manual. And I said, and? She said, I don't have a GA. It's like, oh, well. And so the student, once I called her out on it, was like, oh, I was confused. I didn't mean to hit send me the selection manual. And of course I say, tell me more. So be careful and know that they're out there. I hate to say it, and I hate to add to your workload at the high school level. Don't ask questions from the textbook. Just don't. Use it as ungraded homework and offer it as practice because they're already looking up the answers. So, again.
Are you saying cheating in any one area more than others?
Will, feel free to chime in on that one. Repeat the question. Am I seeing cheating in more areas than one? One more than another. Nothing, I mean, don't want to wave our dirty laundry around or anything. But I see the bigger trends in freshmen versus sophomore, junior, and seniors. The kinds of cheating is what I'm seeing. So it's not so much the area or the major. Plagiarism is always number one, always. Collaboration is next, and then it's a little bit of everything else. But then you get things like engineering where they just don't write a lot of papers. So that's more of the collaboration area. So that's a detailed question that I can run numbers for you and send those to you later, but I don't really have a clear answer. Okay. You get creative stuff. Plagiarism, you know, it's all with papers, but with the sciences, and how do you cheat in piano performance? I've seen it all. So with fraud, now our definition of academic misconduct is any act which affects the improper evaluation of a student's performance or achievement. It's very mushy. We did that on purpose, so I can lump as much as humanly possible inappropriate behaviors in there. Absences. Now this is a big thing that I think catches a lot of freshmen off guard. Our 5 excused absences at OU. Anyone know what they are? Guaranteed they have to let you retake that exam or anything. No, it is not sickness or doctor's note. It's not death in the family, unless you're dead. If you're dead, then you are excused. It's university-sponsored event. Could be debate, but it's university-sponsored. Religious observation, that's federally protected, so yes. Jury duty, military service, pregnancy. That's the only medical thing. It wasn't when I was in law school. And that's I've depended on personal relationships and getting that excused. But it is now. It's not your appendix exploded. It's not I have the flu. It's not my grandma died. Luckily, they're normal people, and if you document it, which we do require, they'll likely excuse it, but they don't have to. And so if this person never comes to class and now has all the excuses, even if they're valid, I don't think they're going to get the flexibility that freshmen assume they will get. And so that is always like, well, I had a doctor's note. Awesome. Don't care. So that, that catches people off guard. Clickers. Does anyone use clickers now? Clickers are, yes. So what it is, the good intended purpose of it, like if right now I went back and covered the 5 excused absences at OU and only half of you could answer what that was, I would go back and recover it. So it's gauging the crowd and what they're learning. So many professors are using it for attendance, which is not a good idea. Because how easy, and they're like the size of a remote control. And so, hey man, I don't feel like going to class, will you take my clicker? Oh yeah, not a big deal. Very much academic misconduct, but they don't process it. And so, have you heard of the website or app called Yik Yak? It's very depressing. Just don't look at it if you don't have to. It won't give you a good outlook of today's youth. But we've actually busted some cheating using that app. And one of the posts was, this guy in front of me's got like 5 clickers, ha ha ha. And Will's our investigation guy, so he was able to determine, I still don't remember how you did that, what class it was. So we approached the professor and said, we know this is going on. And she's like, yeah, I kind of expected that. So we planned a sting. I have a cool, weird job. So what it was they came into class as normal. She asked some clicker questions. And then halfway through, Will and I roll in, shut the doors, and then one by one, and we didn't pass a stack of Scantrons down the sheet, or down the row. It was, you get one, you get one. So we know that every person in that room got a Scantron. And then they filled it out, and you only get one. So there was what, like 13 clickers that were in class, but not the student, because they weren't there to fill out a Scantron. So we do things like that to try and keep people honest, and I'm fine with that. And they know that the phrase clicker sting has become pretty famous on our campus. So this is a big one too, especially with you that are offering concurrent enrollment and AP credit. Transcripts. Just because they fail a class in high school, oh, well, I don't want to disclose that when I apply for college. You have to, because it's for college credit. And I think people don't realize that because they took it in high school. And when you fail to disclose that, you violated the Academic Integrity Code because you're misrepresenting your academic performance. So that right there should be a great reason to emphasize to your high school students that you have to take this seriously because the universities are. And I think that's another one that a lot of people get confused on. We even lump lying on resumes and scholarships into my office because, again, misrepresenting academic performance, that takes away an opportunity from another student who's doing it honestly. We had a resume one where she was applying for some special recognition, like outstanding businesswoman, I think. And the person, and she said she was in this business honor organization. But the person reviewing the applications was the advisor to that business honor association, was like, she's not in my group. Violation of the Academic Integrity Code. So if you're lucky enough to have as mushy of a definition of academic misconduct as I am, congratulations, because it makes things much easier. So plagiarism, the #1 kind. It's not just incoming freshmen. It's transfer students who didn't take or took Comp 11, 13, and 12, 13 there, not at OU. It's international students who've been writing for a while now, just at a different standard. It's graduate students who have an entire undergraduate degree somewhere else, and no one ever told them they were doing it wrong. Then they end up at OU. Plagiarism as a graduate student is a very big deal. Now, there's no writing exam to get into college. I mean, there's a personal statement, but are they even writing that? I can't read minds. I'd be damn good at my job if I could. So I can't gauge someone's writing level. We just assume that they're at a certain point when they get into college. So I wanted to show you what we expect them to know This is what you need to be teaching your students, because when they get here, I assume they know all of this, all right? 5-step process. Number 1, they need to be able to have their own perspective, the thesis statement. I know that you're teaching them that. They need to be able to do quality sources with quality research, not crap. No Googling, no Wikipedia, nothing like that. You know, journals. I always feel bad for students when they get here and have never seen a journal before. They don't know what a database is. So if you're teaching that, thank you. Find short, valuable quotes. I tell them that, you know, my 3rd grader, he's pretty good with the interwebs. I bet I could train him to use libraries.ou.edu. But what distinguishes college-level writers versus 3rd graders is they can read the research. They can find the short, valuable quote that they need. They know how to set it up with textual signals. Nobody just drops a quote in a paper. And then they know the basic rules of citation. I had a young man in my office on Monday. I was like, is it happy hour after that meeting? Man, he was very entitled. He had gone to an awesome college preparatory school and told me all about it. And was considered a sophomore because he had so many credit hours, even though it was his freshman year. Concurrent enrollment, AP credit, and this was for a 1,000 level history course, like 1862 on. And blatant plagiarism in it. And he had sat there, and I warned him. I said, when I started talking, I try to be reasonable. I always start off reasonable. That, well, my concern is you didn't take Comp 11, 13, and 12, 13 here, so you may not have had our standards back to the college preparatory school. He knew what he was doing. He had full sentences with just a footnote, which indicates a paraphrase. And then even beyond that, he had whole sections that didn't even have a footnote. And so once we get to the root of it, well, I'm just not a history man. You're telling me that this paper and this incident is going to stop my hard work and dreams of becoming a doctor? And I said, you know, I'm sorry, I don't want doctors who take shortcuts and can justify this. That comment did not go over very well. So the basic rules. Paraphrasing is easy to define. It's harder to do. Have them practice it. Will and I were doing a presentation the other day, and I was like, okay, find a paragraph. I'll paraphrase it real quick. It took me a minute. So make sure that they're well-versed on that. The copying versus writing. This is writing. So many students think, well, I found it on the internet, and I cited it. That's what you wanted, right? No, that's a data dump. Anybody can do that. That's what Wikipedia does. I want your thoughts on it. Add to the academic discourse. That is the next step of college-level writing that so many people don't understand when they get to OU. They're stuck in the data dump mode. So look at the kinds of assignments and writing prompts that you're giving to your students. Are you asking them to challenge themselves to have a perspective and a solid thesis statement to really understand what they're writing? Or are you asking for a data dump? Great example. I always say academic integrity is all hands on deck. Now when professors say, tell me about Martin Luther King, holy crap, that's a huge topic. But if you narrow it down and say, tell me about a time in the life of Martin Luther King that changed the direction of the civil rights movement, it's still very open. They can still have their thoughts on it, but they have to have a thought to finish the assignment. That's what I want them to be doing in high school, so they're not like, holy crap, when they get to college, and then they end up plagiarizing because they're not confident in their writing skills, they don't know what they're doing. Now, forgive my language, but I call it my bullshit meter, okay? I'm doing this for 8 years. I know when someone's lying at me, and this is the one kind where I think they're honestly telling the truth. I didn't know. I've written all of my papers like this. No one ever told me I was doing it wrong. So our schools are setting them up for failure if we're not having this detailed conversation about writing versus copying. So back on that. So what's different then? I mean, if the cheating is the same, well, obviously the cost, time, and the effort, it's expensive, and it's not getting any cheaper. I have an almost 2-year-old. I'm horrified at the cost of public university even. So they need to realize that, but you know, most of them are getting college paid for in one way or another. Time and effort. If college was easy, everybody would do it. And I don't think they realize that. And when people end up in my office, it's not the dumb kids. I hate that. It's really, it can be the high achieving students. And they panic because this is the first time it's hard. Or I've never not turned something in, so I'll plagiarize really quick. The expectations of the baseline knowledge are different. I've kind of covered what we expect with writing, but again, I can't read minds, and there's no guarantees as to what someone knows, but the fact that they got in, they're expected to know a certain thing, but they don't know what they don't know. And that's a challenge right there. We've gone towards holistic admissions, trying to get a better view of the student, but again, we can't read minds. I wish there was a writing test, but I don't know. I feel like some people get in and they're just set up for failure because they are not prepared to be here. The assignments are different. The length, the depth, the novelty of the material. And in theory, their parents aren't here to help them. And the professors laugh. That's right. But not even the parents. I mean, I give high school presentations, and I'll talk about those at the end and what I can help you with. But I see your reminders on the board. Don't forget, due on Friday. We have those professors that will say, here's your syllabus, and never mention a due date again. Prepare them for that. At least acknowledge it. So that I think is a big one. Penalties. This is where the stark differences really come out. I'll have freshmen in our gateway classes, which is like a 1-hour intro to OU. In those presentations, tell me about your high school penalties. And I love well, I never cheated, so I don't know. Great, good answer. But, you know, it's detention. It's a 0. It's maybe a call to your parents if they did something real bad. And my favorite line and the look of horror that follows is, oh, I'll do much worse than that. And I let it hang there for a while. So they're just like, gulp. Makes me happy. I love my job. And so we go over that. We have warnings at OU, which I think about half of our cases do get a warning and a 0 on the assignment. But we encourage our professors to at least file the warning so they can't go, oh, this is my first time. Oh, this is my first time. Oh, which I've seen them try and do. And it puts them on notice that this is not high school. You need to get it together. But that's not a required first offense. Sometimes professors can go straight to full violations, which now goes up to an F in the course, which we do have a retake policy that allows students to, if they've earned a D or an F, to retake the course, even if it's earned for cheating. I have mixed feelings about that. When I get some free time, I'll talk to Nick Hathaway. I don't know. But yes, and so, but even if they retake it, that original F never comes off their transcript. So I ask them, imagine you're in an interview. So what happened this semester? Where did this F come from? What are you going to say? Oh, I cheated. It was a rough semester. Or are you going to lie to your potential employer? So that alone is huge. And it's a massive waste of money. But any of our institutional penalties become a permanent part of the student's educational record. That's why little college preparatory school man was very upset. Because you know who cares? Med schools, law schools, jobs that require security clearance. And I'll be the first to admit, that's not everybody. A lot of people won't go so far as to check the educational record. But if they ask, the student is going to have to justify that moment of panic, that lapse of judgment. So and they don't realize that. We do have expulsion. Like I said earlier, I don't have to do that very often, thankfully. We have suspensions. It's not for a matter of days. It's an entire academic period. Fall or spring. I've had students, I think she lied to her sorority. She was studying abroad that semester. She wasn't suspended. I'm like, oh, God. But OU has taken the path towards remedial sanctions, which I'm very excited about, because look at our stories. We all have messed up. It's a part of life. And you've got some schools like University of Virginia, one strike and you're out. They're done with you. We, for the most part, try to put everyone in a 1 credit hour integrity training course that, do we change all hearts and minds? No. Sometimes, sadly, I will have people go through it and cheat again. Then I really drop the hammer. But for the most part, like I said, they apply to our integrity council. I get hugs on campus. I get emails years later telling me what they're doing with their lives and how this was the best thing that ever happened to them. it takes a lot of maturity for them to look back at it that way. And at first, we have them write letters to the stakeholder at the end explaining what happened. And no, this one was a feedback. It was a feedback on it, and it was, I hated you when this class started. But I now realize I hated you because you represented my bad decision. And so I start off pretty tough, and then we bring it back, and it ends with integrity in the real world. And this doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do now. So I'm hoping to bring, I'm on a task force with Norman Public Schools trying to bring that kind of remedial sanctions to our public schools. So if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to send you my syllabus as well. It's a great class. It's easily my favorite part of my job because you can see them learning from it. Now again, not everybody does, but most of them do. It's very nice. Now, the challenge unique to high school, you don't want to end somebody's educational career. That's why you're a teacher. You're here to give them tools they need to go be successful human beings, be it college, military, trade school. I don't have that problem. Okay? I am interested in protecting the value of the OU degree and the quality education that we provide and to help shape young people should they end up in my office so long as they want to be here. But I can be very selective who stays at my campus. You can't. I get that. So, sorry, but you know, it's the easier thing for me. So if this is such a big deal, why aren't they taking it more seriously when they get to college? Because they're adults now, right? Yeah. I've already alluded to that success in high school can actually hurt people when they get to the college level. I always ask, when was the last time you read the Student's Guide to Academic Integrity? And if they're in my office, it's either when I got your email or never. So stress to them, I'm sure you have great rules in place, but whatever college they go to, or military, or trade school, read the manual. Because think of it, you have this job, and you go to this job. You're probably going to take time to look at the rules there in terms of vacation and when you check in and check. Same thing. So success in high school can actually hurt you. It's still not a big deal. It's like, you know, a DUI or teen pregnancy. It's not a big deal till it happens. And I see that a lot. It's still not getting reported. That's depressing. I will tell you that since we've gone to our new academic integrity code in 2011, numbers of reports continue to go up. We're victims of our own success in my office. I don't think they're cheating more. I really don't. I think they're reporting more. I think we've made it easier for our professors to report, shown that we care and provide the resources and support that they need to do so. Parents. Parents. So you know the term helicopter parents? Well, it's evolved. It's Velcro parents, where I can't even detach them. I had a lovely mother in my office a couple weeks ago where he talked for about 2 seconds and then mom jumped in. And I have to say, I'm sorry, ma'am. I understand that you care about your son. I have 2 boys of my own. I like to throw that in. And you're probably paying for it, but you are not the student. I need to hear from him. I should be paid more for the amount of confrontation I get from attorneys and parents. But you know, hey, I get it. We love our kids, but they've got to back off at some point. You know, we had the hearing on Monday again. Mom showed up. He's a senior. What are you going to do? Like, write his weekly reports in the office for him? Go to the work meetings? It frustrates me. And again, you can't fight that at the high school level. One of the things that makes my job a little bit better than yours, because I can tell them to leave, at least with the FERPA. You know, you guys have FERPA, but my FERPA is better than your FERPA. Because I can have at least, okay, well, I can tell you the basics of our system, but you're going to need to fill out this form. So I've got like 5 minutes to plan my attack before mom returns with the FERPA release. So parents aren't helping as much as they should. So I don't have any answers to that. So what can you do? Talk about it. Do not make the mistake that our kids know what they're doing, that they know it's a priority, because they might. but talk about it and then talk about it again. Talk about it at any age. I talk to my 3rd grader about integrity all the time. Very unique case, though. He's been in trouble for someone tried to copy his assignment in class, and that's cheating, and he disrupted. I was like, good job, kid. Good job. So it's a little bit different, but you can talk about it at any age. You can talk about it in relevance to whatever it is you teach. Google integrity in your field, and something will come up. In the presentation that I give to high school students on integrity, I give them different examples of integrity in our pop culture and American culture in general right now. Make it real for them. Talk about oil spills, where they took shortcuts with parts. And talk about, what's the one, Will, from the vaccinations? Yeah, so that's questionable. But pick a field. And make it real for them. Show them that integrity is not something that you just care about, but they care about at the university level, and they're going to care about it in whatever they want to do afterwards. It's very, very important to do that. They won't know until you tell them. You know, we talk to our kids about safe sex and safe relationships and drinking and driving. How often do you talk to them about integrity? I don't know why we don't have that conversation. Set expectations and follow through. Follow through. Don't be, you know, they're going to test, you can see it more than I do. They test your boundaries. They're going to test those rules all day long. If they screw up, sanction them. Life is hard. Figure it out early, but be consistent. It's like parenting. I mean, I don't know how else to compare it, you know. They're gonna test their boundaries. Provide the real life examples. Have better assignments. I've covered a lot of tips on how to do that. Writing in class, sadly, multiple versions of exams. Change your exams. If I could have one wish, one career wish, it would be that every assignment and test on the University of Oklahoma campus magically disappears, and everyone has to create new ones. Because test file, I mean, if you hand it back and give the same exam for 10 years, what do you think they're going to do with it? And I know that there have been test files and issues in high schools as well. So look back and say, when was the last time that I changed up my exam? All right, we have to do it on our academic integrity quiz because we don't want cheating on the cheating quiz. So more in-depth writing prompts. Here's one. If you have Scantrons and you're worried about people changing their exams, saying, oh, this one was graded wrong, which we've all heard, take a copy of that Scantron before you hand it back. That makes it so easy to be like, you changed it. Stop talking. Practice paraphrasing. Practice paraphrasing. That is one we get caught up on a lot. Remind, remind, remind. Don't cover it the first day of class and never mention it again. And and have actual conversations along with the reminders. Don't just like hang up that eagle flying poster that says integrity, you know. You know what I'm talking about, the deep quote underneath it? That's lovely. You probably have some in your office. That's fine. But it's got to be a more in-depth conversation than that. And it's got to be at the beginning. It's got to be when you hand out an assignment and explain it. It's got to be before they hand it in. It's got to be before finals. And hell, it could be the last day of your class where you say, I hope you learned integrity. Take it with you. Because wherever you go, you're going to need it. That's the kind of conversation you can be having. So all hands on deck. It's not just our students not cheating, it's everyone doing their part. The fact that you're here, you are doing a bigger part than a lot of people are. So with the administration, make it a part of the culture of your school. Start priding yourself on integrity. It is something to be proud of. Like I said, pride and reputation. Studies have shown that when you compare yourself to a rival, so long story short, if there's a cheating scandal at Oklahoma State, in theory, integrity at OU rises. So I'm not saying hate on your competitors, Norman North, Norman High, but make it a point of pride. We are better than them. We have higher standards. That's what makes colleges likely to pick you for their one spot, not somebody else, because our school cares. Get jazzed about that. Have an academic integrity code, an honor code, whatever you want to call it. I know from experience, the students that come from high schools that have a code do better when they get to college because they've seen it. They know what a big deal it is. The system looks familiar. Ones that, you know, get slaps on the wrist or all handle it in a different way from professor to professor, they get lost. And they're the ones that are like, you're suspending me? So have a code. Be consistent with that. If your high school can afford it, have turnitin.com. It's glorious. It's not perfect, but it does make my life easier. And at the high school level, if you use it and they try to turn that in college, I find it. And then belittle them for turning in high school work in college. Kidding, not really. So, parents, quit doing your students' work. I don't know, again, how you stop them. We all want what's best for our kids. That's a universal thing. But they're not helping them. Good luck with that mission. I don't know how you're going to convince them, but I wish you well. We have to let our students be independent and reap the consequences. Because it's going to happen at some point where you're not there to fix it. College is a great place to screw up. It really is. I mean, very rarely do I end someone's educational career entirely. More often than not, it's a wake-up call. And I'd rather have them screw up with me than screw up in their career, jeopardize their professional reputation, lose a job. So they need to let them go a little bit. And what I love with parents is they need to, you know how we shared our stories? We need to tell students about our own stories, but also our expectations. Again, back to the whole, we talked to them about safe sex and drinking and driving. Where's the integrity conversation? Parents need to be having that. That'd be something you could mention in your parent-teacher conferences. You know, hey, here are our standards of integrity at this school. Make sure you know them and communicate with them to your students so we can all tell them how important integrity is in education. Definitely something you can be doing there. Students, we have a lovely statistic. Don't ask me where it came from. I don't know. I've been using it for years. 20, 60, 20. 20% of students are never going to cheat. They just aren't. 20% are always going to cheat because it's a game. They want to see if they can beat the system. But that 60% will go either way in a moment of panic. And those are the ones that you can affect by having these conversations, by having codes in place, by reminding them of their personal commitment and your commitment as an institution to integrity. They need to know the rules and follow them. And that is what I give to principals. I can send that to you if you'd like it. The future for your students, I've talked about our code. No offense for any Oklahoma State graduates. We've got a better code than theirs. It's tougher. It is. It's tougher. They don't have as many permanent marks and educational records. Other institutions, we all do it differently, but most of us have something in place. So, and I'm going to keep going here. The future for you. We have handouts that we provide to our own professors on preventing cheating. My email, it's in the handouts. Send me an email. We're all in this together. Okay? I'm happy to give you any resources that I have. Our website is integrity.ou.edu. We have documents on there called 9 Things You Should Know About Plagiarism. If your kids are well versed in that before they graduate, they are at an advantage when they get to us. Look at our Student's Guide to Academic Integrity. Look at how we're talking to them. Dan Ariely's Buggy Moral Code. Dan Ariely is a social behavior, I can never remember his title. Really cool. He does, that's a YouTube video right there. If you've got, I think it's like 15 minutes long over lunch, watch it. It's the psychology of cheating. And it's stuff that we already know, but it's really interesting. That's where I get the sweatshirt thing and school versus school. You can make a difference. I know that's cheesy. But I mentioned the assignment in my class where we have them write a letter to the stakeholder about what happened. And they have to write it to someone who, again, has a stake in their education. I get parents a lot. I get future graduate schools. But maybe surprising to you, I get high school teachers a lot. I get coaches. They know they've let you down. And they know that, and they internalize it, and hopefully my classes help them to grow. But don't think that you're not leaving a mark on them. That lasts a lifetime, because you are. So recognize that and, like, you know, pat yourself on the back and stuff, because you guys are on the front lines, and that's why we all have to be in it together, because if we start having conversations about integrity now, by the time they get to me, they're already invested. The last thing I want to leave you with, I give this presentation to high school staff. I've done it at Norman High before. But at Putnam City North, I was actually there for Mrs., can't remember her name, Causey, her AP English class. I talked the entire day to all of her students After this, people saw this one, they asked, well, can you come talk to my students? So I created a student presentation, and it's more integrity in general, not just academic, and it's great because, you know, I throw in cuss words every now and again. I tend to get people's attention, but I see lights coming on. I see them, I see head nods. I have them come up after me afterwards and thank me. I got 18-year-olds thanking me for talking about integrity. And I always bring voter registration forms, which is great. I like to think I've registered a lot of students to vote because that's part of being a citizen, which has a link to integrity. So again, email me. I'm happy to do all of this.